Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel, where today we are doing a full review of Once Broken Faith by Seanan McGuire, the 10th book in the October Daye series. For those of you that do not know, I have been doing a reread of this series. So I have already fully read this series, and as such, I do break up my reviews into 3 different sections. The first section is for anybody who has not read this book. It is a non-spoilery review. The second section does contain spoilers, but just for this book. And then the third section does contain spoilers for the entire rest of the series. And I do this so that you can go ahead and click away from this review whenever you want to retain the mystery of what's coming. So with that, let's jump right in. So for anybody that does not know, this series is an adult urban fantasy series set in an alternate San Francisco Bay Area. And we are following our main character of October Daye, who is half human and half fae. And she happens to be a knight, and she happens to be asked to solve a lot of unusual problems around the bay because, you know, she's best suited to solve them. And so we follow her misadventures. And in this particular book, we are jumping right off from the last book. So in the last book, Toby went on a diplomatic mission, and of course, everything went awry because she is not a diplomat. And now we are having to deal with the consequences of what came out of this. And it is one of the big consequence of this is something that could change Fairy. And as such, they decided to call a conclave to get together a bunch of the kings and queens to decide what they are going to do going forward. Toby is ordered to go to the conclave, and then at the conclave, somebody dies because, you know, when you get a bunch of power-hungry people together, that frequently happens. And so Toby needs to solve the murder mystery. That's the book. I generally really liked this particular plot line. I thought it was just generally good. It served the purpose very nicely. And honestly, I liked that the previous book was like the event, and now we have the consequences that we also still have to deal with. I like that it follows logically and that it was just done well. I only had a couple quibbles with the plot, and the first is that the villain is a little bit easy to figure out. And even then, it is a little bit twisted on its side, and motivations do matter and everything. So I'm not terribly concerned about it. It was just a little bit annoying. There's a little bit of like mustache twirling villain kind of stuff going on, which sometimes villains are like that. And then the other thing is that Toby and her allies frequently find themselves in extremely dangerous situations, which I totally understand. But as of late, there have been so many almost deaths, and there was like 3 in this book, and I'm just kind of done. Like, I didn't love just how much it happened. And it was just like, okay, yeah, of course they're close to death, but they'll be saved. It's fine. Like, I don't feel like the same sense of urgency when a character is close to death, because it doesn't feel like they're actually going to die. Now, I know better because Seanan McGuire generally does not have qualms about killing off characters, but I am starting to lose a little bit of that urgency because it happens so frequently. So those are the only small things that I had about the plot, but otherwise I very, very much liked this. The pacing of it is excellent. So we do take a little bit of time in the beginning to kind of rev up, and then we just go until the end. The writing style itself is great. If you've been reading the October Daye series, it's more of the same. It's just generally good Seanan McGuire writing. The characters. So at this point in the series, we have such a large cast of characters that we can't focus on all of them. So there are a chunk of our characters who have taken a back seat in this particular book, which does make me sad because I like to see them all. But in its place, we do end up bringing the High King and Queen to the forefront and learning more about them, which is really cool. We're introduced to a lot of the monarchs along the West Coast as they are here to debate what they are doing going forward. So we do find out about them, which is really cool. But the only thing is, like, with those monarchs, we don't spend a ton of time with them because it's only one book and there's a bunch of them. So it was cool to introduce the characters. However, we didn't get a ton of depth on anybody. And then the big, like, plot, like, character development thing that's going on is with Toby. Now, throughout this series, Toby has, she's technically half fae and half human, but the balance of her blood has kind of shifted throughout this series, sometimes more human and sometimes more fae. And as she has gone more fae, she really has been grappling with this idea of, like, she doesn't want to lose her humanity, and she is fixating on things where it's like she feels like she is losing her humanity. And so we get a lot of rumination on that particular idea, which I think is good because like, Toby is changing and she has been changing, and I think it makes sense to kind of take a step back and look and say, is this how I want to change? I just felt like it was a little bit heavy-handed. Like, that was my only problem with it. And I got this with a little bit with the last book as well, where it was like a slightly different thing that Toby was ruminating on, and it just kind of felt a little heavy-handed. But otherwise, it was interesting to see all the characters. I mean, if you've kind of come along in the series thus far, it's just kind of fun to see all your favorites, get introduced to new characters. It's great. And then lastly, the world building. Now, because we did have all the monarchs, we did get to find out a little bit about their kingdom. We got to find out a little bit more about how the United States is, like, broken up into kingdoms, all that kind of really fun stuff. And it's more like we're going to change it. It's less about world building in general and more about how is the world going to change based off of the decisions of this conclave. And so it was not a huge emphasis. There were a lot of little touches that were, like, added in, and it was really nice to see that, but not a huge amount of world building. But overall, I really loved this book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It was just really, really good. I raced through this. I read it in a single day. So that should give you some idea of how much I enjoyed this. The only thing that I will say is that this is absolutely not a standalone. If you want the 5-star book, you do need to read the previous books, because otherwise there's a lot of things that you're not going to understand and aren't going to have the same impact on you as somebody who has read the entire series. So I strongly encourage you to not read this as a standalone. But that is it, you guys. That is my non-spoiler review. And so we are going to go ahead and jump into the spoilery section for just this book. And if you do not want to watch that part, you can go ahead and click away now. Bye. Okay. So as usual, I will just go through these points in order that I wrote them down, which is not always even in, like, chronological order. Just, as I thought of them. I thought it was really interesting to watch the Lushak protecting Karen. So we know that the Lushak is a mom, and obviously, like, her children, the majority of her children were murdered. So there's a lot of grief and hurt along with that. But sometimes I think we forget that she was a mom and she knows how to be a mom. And so watching her maternal instincts come out with somebody is always interesting, and watching it with Karen is always interesting, and then watching Toby react to that is interesting as well. And it'll be interesting to continue to watch that. I loved the sleepover at the beginning of this book, where all the, like, all the kids from this series kind of get together to have a sleepover. Now, of course, most of them are fae, so they're like, we're not going to sleep though, so why is it called a sleepover? Which I thought was a funny little touch. But it was really fun to see all of them, especially because for the majority of them, they don't play much of a part in this book at all. Except for Quentin. And of course, I loved watching all the posturing that they kind of had to go through to get Quentin the Squire into the conclave so that Quentin the Crown Prince could watch the conclave so that he would see this value, like get some really valuable insights into how it goes, because this is the kind of thing he's going to need to do once he is the High King. But it was just funny to watch everybody like play their part. So let's see. Sorry. I do like that Toby made up with Sylvester. Um, I completely understand and agree with Toby why she was so angry with him. She lives and dies by trust. She puts a lot of emphasis on trust, as I do. And so when you break it, it's a big deal. And like he doesn't quite get that. But I like that she was just like, okay, I took my time. I'm still mad at you, but we're going to move forward and don't ever do this again. Like, I appreciate that she said all the different parts, and I am glad that they have finally made up. I have realized that I really, really don't like Luna though, because Luna, of course, asked Toby to change the balance of her daughter's blood and said, "Hey, like, please do this." And so Toby, well, it was an exchange of favors. And so, Toby did, but Rachel didn't wake up, and apparently Luna was expecting that. Now, Luna may not have consciously been expecting that, but on some level she was. And now she's mad at Toby because, Rachel didn't wake up because Toby didn't want her to be awake. And with that, now Luna's mad, and I'm sitting here going, "You're dumb. You're dumb because either you had an expectation that you didn't realize you had, in which case, like, I can't help you, or you're mad because Toby didn't do the thing that you didn't tell her you wanted her to do. Like, that's all on you. Like, I can't with you." And so just more and more, I do not really like Luna. I loved that the small magics came back. So the Marshwater Charm and the fairy rings are small magics. And Toby, and part of this is used to like give Toby something to ruminate about, right? But I do like that it was Toby mentions the Marshwater Charms, that fairy rings are like Marshwater Charms. They require so little magic, and most purebloods don't worry about them because like they just do the full-blown spell, right? But they're really useful for a number of reasons, and she thinks back to when she used Marshwater Charms, which happens to be the very first book in this series. And so I love, it's basically a callback. This is how far we've come. And of course, Toby takes it as a callback as well. Like, this is how far I've come, and like, where is my humanity now? But I do like that we did go back to that. I loved the High Queen. I just like her so much. I could take or leave the High King, but the Queen, she's awesome. I really enjoyed getting to know her better in this book. I was really sad that Danny wasn't here. I really want to see Danny again. So I'm hopeful in the next book, but I don't remember if he's in the next book or not. And then it's like, of course, Ira doesn't want the cure to get out. She's such a jerk. She's such a good villain because she's like, I will sleep out my 100 years as long as we can still kill off changelings. Like, how ridiculous. I just like over the top villain. Like, and you believe it because she's just that awful. Ugh. Anyway. So that's it. Those are my thoughts. I mean, like, not a whole lot of super in-depth thoughts about this particular book. It was really just super enjoyable. But that is it for this particular section. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the section that it will spoil the rest of the series. So if you do not want to be around for that, go ahead and click away now. Bye. Okay. So with this section, it is a lot more speculation, and honestly, I don't even have a ton of that because I feel like we've gotten to the point in the series where we're building to another big revelatory book, and I don't know what it is, but I'm I'm guessing that that's a lot of what we are doing. But let's go ahead and jump right in. Now, Toby, of course, thanks the Lushak at the very end of this book. And the Lushak is just like so over how dumb Toby is. Like, she's just like, of course you freaking had to bring debt into this. Like, we finally got to the point where we're pretty much even and you had to go and do that. You are my dumbest niece. And I love that you can tell all of that just from like a couple of sentences. And it's clear that the Lushak loves Toby, but Toby's dumb. Like, I just kind of love watching. I love watching that relationship so much. Now, Toby told a whole room full of kings and queens about her specific magical ability, which she had to because like the whole elf shot thing, and how did she survive as a changeling. But I'm just like, that's not gonna go nowhere. That's gonna come back. That has to come back to bite her in the butt. Because like now she has offered one kingdom to do all the changeling's choice. She did that with a court of cats, a couple people in the court of cats, and now it's just like, so is she just picking and choosing? Like, they're not gonna let her do that. They're not gonna let her continue to pick and choose and do whatever she wants. I just can't see that happening. So I'm like waiting for this to kind of come back and just be a problem. And then also the long-term consequences of the cure getting out. I'm interested to see this because like I do think that there are going to be long-term consequences. Does it mean that just like, I don't know, like I can't imagine what it would be, but like are Fae going to like go to war and die more often? I don't know, but there's got to be something that's going to happen. And now I just want to know what. And then the handmaiden of the High Mountain Monarchs being forced to kill. Obviously, that gave Toby the impetus and also like disgust with the purebloods to go ahead and address the entire conclave in a very frank manner. And I do appreciate that, but I feel like this is something that's not going to end here. Like, this is one of those things that Toby is going to look back on, and it's going to give her the impetus to kind of keep going with something. I don't know what, but I want to see, again, I want to see what it is, because I do think that's going to happen. It was too big of a thing for Toby for her to just like walk away and leave it alone. So she's going to think about it some more, and it's going to change her actions. And I want to know what it is. So, and then lastly, there is a really weird relationship dynamic between Sylvester and Simon and Patrick Lorden. So obviously Simon and Sylvester are brothers, and then Patrick Lorden apparently was Simon's best friend, and there's all kinds of dirt there, and I don't remember when we find it out, if it's like next chapter maybe, or not next chapter, next book. So I know that the next book is Toby has to hunt down August, so she ends up teaming up with Simon. And then I know that the book coming out, A Killing Frost, so that's book 14, Toby is tracking down Simon because like apparently there's rules in Fairy about he has to be there at her wedding, and it's a problem. I don't know. Anyway, so I know we're going to get some Simon, more Simon-centric books coming up, and I don't remember when we find out about the whole Patrick-Simon relationship and what was going on, but I'm so here for getting all the dirt. I want to know so badly. But that's it, you guys. That's all I got. So, of course, if you have read this series, if you've made it to the end of this video, if you've read this series, please come talk with me down in the comments. I just ask that you be respectful and like do the spaces so that like your spoilery part is hidden. But other than that, that's all I got. So until next time, have happy reading, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.